everybody. Lovely to see you all. Welcome to our November Zoom talk. I think we've actually got 2 this month. So this is our first one, which we're really excited about. We've heard great things about this talk. So we are joined by Tom from Naturetrek. I'll just give you a quick introduction. So Tom's talk is the best of Britain. In this talk, Tom is going to cover his favourite wildlife locations across the UK, from the Wild West of Scotland to his local Forest of Dean. Appreciating what is close to home and on our doorstep has never been more important, and Tom will also talk about some local wildlife discoveries and the joy and excitement of finding wildlife on your home patch, including an introduction to camera trapping. Okay, so before Tom takes over, I'd just like you all just to make sure you've got yourself on mute. So we are going to have some questions and answers at the end. If you could just type those questions into the chat box, and Cheryl is going to read those out at the end. Okay, and I don't think there's anything else. So I can hand over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you for inviting me, and nice to see you all. So I will just share my screen with you, and we'll get started. So as Jo was saying, my name's Tom Mabbett. I work for the wildlife tour operator Naturetrek, and we run wildlife holidays all around the world. And I'm lucky enough to lead quite a few of those, and I also look after the management of a whole host of different tours. Lots in Europe, lots in the UK, lots over in South America. For the next sort of hour or so, I'm going to cover my favourite areas in Britain to enjoy wildlife, and just show that you don't have to travel great distances to have amazing wildlife encounters. And towards the end of the talk, I'll also talk about working your own patch, enjoying what's in your garden, and introducing a bit of camera trapping. So I'm going to start at my furthest north destination up in Scotland, and the Wild West, the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, up on the west coast of Scotland, is one of my absolute favourite destinations for enjoying a whole host of special species. Here's a map of where it is. So the red blob there is the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, and the western tip is actually the lighthouse at the end is actually the westernmost point of the British mainland. So this is Mull, the island of Mull here. So it's just north of Mull. It's around a 4-hour drive from Glasgow. So for our tours that we run there, we run tours in spring and in autumn, and tours to focus on the red deer rut. And we meet in Glasgow and then drive up a beautiful scenic drive up through Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park, up to take the little Corran ferry across here, and then onto the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. A bit more of a close-up. We just spend the whole week. We tend to have week-long tours there, and just spend the whole week in this on this one area, just enjoying the incredible views and focusing on getting really nice views of the different species there. Lots of star mammals and some fantastic birds as well, which I'll cover now. So this is our base. We base ourselves at the Ardnamurchan bunkhouse, which is surrounded by fantastic forests, loads of wildlife on the doorstep. You'll often have flocks of crossbill and siskins up in the tops of the pines there. It's brilliant for pine marten, which I'll come to in a moment, and you're a very short walk away from Loch Standout, where we've got a chance of seeing close views of otter and a range of other superb species. So this is a typical view on Ardnamurchan. It's why I love it. Just this endless, amazing views and beautiful scenery, and you're really cut off really from the hustle and bustle of normal daily life. It's like another world up there, so tranquil and peaceful and still, and just very few people around, and stacks of wildlife. So this is Loch Standout. So you walk, it's only a 100-metre walk from our base, and you have beautiful views like this. It's just nice to come down in the morning. We have a little pre-breakfast walk down here, sit at the edge of the loch, and just watch for movement and any wildlife out on the water. There'll often be eagles drifting overhead, and otters out in the water. Divers, red-throated divers breed out on this loch, and there's just so much to see. So here is an otter, of course, and it's one of the star species that we hope to find, and we dedicate a lot of time into getting not just a fleeting glimpse or sort of tick it off. We like to spend time and get some amazing views, and the guides know the best areas to find them. All the photos in this talk are taken either by myself or by group members or tour leaders. So I'm not using any sort of stock professional images. And here's a nice close-up of two otters coming really close to the group and just sat still on the edge of the loch, scanning with binoculars and scopes to pick up the animals, and then just wait. And often they'll come quite close in. These two just a few meters away from the group, and just watching the different behaviours and interaction between these otters is it's a fabulous experience. Definitely one of my favourite animals, and there's a really good population of them here. And just another photo to show show a bit of the size and that really long tail. And that's often what you're looking for when they dive. Their tails of the last bit to disappear, so you just have a little point as they dive through the water. And incredibly proficient hunters. They need to eat an awful lot of fish every single day, and almost every time they surface, they've got something, whether it's a flatfish or a lumpsucker or a crab, or they're always munching on something. Incredibly proficient with these incredibly long whiskers for sensing their prey when they're swimming through the water. Just fabulous animals. And of course, this is the same species. This is river otter, one species that we find in Britain. Of course, a number of different species worldwide, but this is the same species that you could see down the Somerset levels, for instance, that we were talking about before we came on. So from one mustelid to the other, I'm a big mustelid fan, and it's a treat to talk to the badger group, and I'll have some badger photos yesterday. So from otter to pine marten, and when I first led this tour and was sort of helped with setting it up and led one of the first visits to Ardnamurchan, we wanted to figure out what was happening with the pine martens there. Were they coming in near the bunkhouse? Could we reliably see them and show our group's pine marten? That was a big target. So I love my camera trapping, which I'll come to later. So I always take a camera trap with me wherever I'm traveling, whether it's Scotland or Brazil or wherever, and set it up on the bird table, popped out some peanuts and bit of they love jam sandwiches as well, and pop them out for pine marten, set up the camera trap. And we found that on the very first week of the tour, we've run it for many years since, and we had 3 different pine martens coming in. And the way we can tell is when they pose nicely, like this one, performing beautifully, lifting his head up and showing the chest patterning there. Each pine marten has went too far there. Each pine marten has a different different patterning on the throat here, so quite distinctive little mark here at the top. So we could clearly see those 3 different animals coming in, and we were absolutely delighted with that. And then over the course of the week, I've set up a nice little pine marten run, a nice little trail, to bring them out into the sort of floodlit patio and give them little free offerings and help them with a bit of extra food. They're omnivorous, so they'll feed on birds, on eggs, even on squirrels as well, and also fruits and nuts and seeds and very much an all-round diet, whatever they can get their hands on. So it was great fun, and the animals soon became very used to the lodge, and their admirers will be sat having a glass of wine or a beer in the lounge, and pine marten will be hopping up really quite close to us. And these are just some of the views you can have. Beautiful, brilliant close-up views of a magnificent pine marten. And I've been lucky enough to see lots of wildlife around the world, but being a couple of inches, a pane of glass away from a pine marten, just the other side of the window, it's absolutely breathtaking experience. Highly recommend it if you can get up there. And they're spreading, of course. I'll talk about the Forest of Dean later, but there's a successful reintroduction of pine marten into the Forest of Dean. So they're doing very well there, and it's been a success. And we won't need to travel as far as Scotland soon to have a chance of seeing them, I hope. I'll just show you a couple more photos of the pine marten, and they are usually nocturnal, but over time and on some of the summer tours where it's long days, they will come in when it's still light and pose for really nice photos. You can see the sharper canines here coming in and munching through the peanuts there. And as I said, they are partial to a jam sandwich, so we give them a bit of a treat and a bit of extra food and a bit of a jam sandwich there. stunning animals, one of my absolute favourites. Lots of other wildlife to explore, to enjoy as we're exploring the peninsula. There's red deer here. They come into the grounds, and on our ruck tours in late September, October, we've often got stags roaring away just in the gardens of the lodge. Really fabulous experience. And other mammals, lots of our tours, the autumn tours particularly focusing on the mammals, and the spring tours more on the birding side of things. There's a common seal. We've got a chance of seeing grey seal as well, often hauling up on the edge of the locks around the peninsula, and just beautiful views. We'll just spend a week just touring around, enjoying a special range of species. This is another view from the Isle of Carna. We'll take a boat over to Carna and scan for otters from here, and there'll be golden and white-tailed eagles are frequently seen from this island out in the loch. Red-throated divers, often hen harriers quartering the moorland side. It's a really rich in wildlife, and the guide the chap that does a lot of work on this island is really managing it well, and he's very passionate about the wildlife here, and he takes us over for a little boat trip on every visit. Butterflies, this is a Scotch Argus. We enjoy absolutely everything that we come across on Naturetrek tours. We're not sort of focused on one thing. We're enjoying the broad natural history of the area. So this is beautiful Scotch Argus. Then we'll head out to the lighthouse, as I was saying, the most western point on the British mainland. Scan the seas for dolphins passing by, or maybe a basking shark. There's often a little flock of twite around the lighthouse. Some great birding, and great just to look out into the Atlantic and see what we can find. Great viewpoints for scanning for raptors. Over on Mull, they've got a very good population of golden eagles, and also white-tailed eagle. And white-tailed eagle now also breed on Ardnamurchan, and we can often see them soaring from this viewpoint here, soaring across in front of us. It's a brilliant place for raptor watching and seeing these two enigmatic species, golden and white-tailed eagles. There's just so much to enjoy, and beautiful, sand beaches and just spectacular views. Beautiful blue water. This is Sanna Bay and Swaddle Bay, looking out to Muck and Eag, two islands out in the Hebrides. Just stunning views. Juvenile white-tailed eagle drifting overhead. There's always something to see on Ardnamurchan, and that's why I rate it so highly. And the golden eagle here, probably drifting over from the Isle of Mull. Fabulous. We'll head out to sea, so we'll spend a whole day on one of our tours out at sea, just seeing what we can find. This is a gannet, of course, just drifting over the back of the boat and peering down on us. We might see great skewer. They breed on nearby islands, so they're often passing by, passing through the area. Quite a common sight when we're out at sea. And we're also always looking for cetaceans, common dolphins here breaking the surface. And if we're lucky and the conditions are still, we've got a chance to see minky whales. So from June through to September time, through those summer months, minky whales will pass through these waters. And if we're lucky with a flat day like this, we've got a pretty good chance of intercepting a minky whale, one of the smaller baleen whales. They're a filter feeder, one of the smaller species of baleen whale. And it's always a treat, of course, to find minky whale. Basking sharks, they're in these waters, very hit or miss, but our groups have been lucky to see basking sharks, looking for that telltale dorsal fin and tail fin breaking the surface of the water, and they'll be cruising around, filter feeding the plankton. It's very dependent on water temperature and the blooms of plankton, how high they are in the water. So plankton's high in the water, it brings the basking sharks high in the water, and that's when we've got a chance of seeing them. So it's a very good place. The Isle of Coll is legendary for its basking sharks, and that's very close by, so we connect with them fairly regularly. In the spring, we'll be enjoying such wonderful species as wood warbler. I'll come to that later, a little close to home. And as I was saying, red-throated diver in breeding plumage. Some of these birds that we may see more frequently as winter visitors. Well, I certainly do on a bit of coastal birding, but seeing them breeding and in their breeding plumage is superb. Bottlenose dolphins as well. Just so much to see, so much wildlife up there. And the very special checkered skipper, one of Britain's rarest butterflies, is found in a few small pockets on Ardnamurchan, and our guides really know where to find them, and we try and find this stunning little butterfly. This is pearl border fritillary as well, so two very special butterflies we hope to find when we're there. Now, I wouldn't, including thinking of best of Britain, I was thinking, what is the sort of standout wildlife experiences in Britain? And visiting a seabird colony is definitely in there for my absolute favourite, British wildlife experiences. I'd highly recommend it. I hope everyone might, has done or makes an effort to go and immerse yourself in the sight, the smell, the noise of a bustling seabird colony. So here you can see, thousands of pairs of mainly guillemots here. All these dots here will be guillemots crammed onto the rock faces here. There'll be a few pairs of razorbill as well in amongst them, usually lower down on the boulders there. And puffins also also breeding on this island as well. This is one of the Tresnish Isles, and the island of Lunga over on the Tresnish. Brilliant experience, and we'll make the crossing. We'll land on the island, and we'll spend a few hours just walking around the island, enjoying the amazing seabirds. This is a shag with this breeding plumage, with the crest and the narrower, slighter bird than cormorant, with this beautiful green eye. And lots of these birds are so used to people visiting the island, they'll be nesting just off the path and very approachable. So you can have fabulous views of these species. Puffins, everyone loves puffins, such an enigmatic and fabulous bird. We can have wonderful close views. So it's a view here of puffin and the surrounding views, and a bit of a close up, letting us get very close as we walk past some nesting burrows. So fabulous experience. As I was saying, we'll visit for the rut as well. Bellowing red deer, stags is a real highlight of a visit in late September through the first couple of weeks of October. Our groups have recently returned from experiencing the red deer rut, and it really is a special experience getting close to these impressive stags, fighting over their harem of females. It's one of the few places we managed to get groups away to last year. Of course, with the COVID situation, it devastated our tours, but it was one of the first trips we managed to get going, one of the first overnight tours we managed to run, and some beautiful photos were sent in last year. This one from a client catching the rainbow there, and a group out again enjoying the wilds of Scotland and all the fabulous wildlife. So that's my first star destination. I've led tours up there and visited on a number of occasions. A fabulous place. And from the wild west of Scotland, I'm going to move to somewhere closer to home, closer to all of us. Is the Forest of Dean. So I'm talking from Cheltenham at the moment. The Naturetrek headquarters is down in Hampshire, but I work from home largely, and born and bred in Cheltenham. And the Forest of Dean is definitely one of my favourite areas. I've visited countless times. I've led lots and lots of day trips recently, lots and lots of overnight tours for Naturetrek, and every time I visit, you see something different. It's always exciting to visit the forest, and it's full of a super wildlife. So the second largest tract of forest, second to the New Forest, and pretty much a split between coniferous and deciduous trees can be found here, and a whole host of different species. So you'll all know where the Forest of Dean is, so they don't really need this slide, but on the red dot there, just bordering the Welsh border. So here's where we stay. We stay at the Speech House Hotel, right in the heart of the forest. Perfect base if you're visiting the forest and you want to stay over. Stay at the Speech House Hotel. Easy access then to all the key sites, and it's great. Very little driving about. So when we're doing the tours and day trips, there's very little moving around. You just very short drives in the car to get to the different habitats. There's lots of open glades, a few lakes and ponds, and fabulous forest. Speech House there, and beautiful towering pine trees, and lots of mature oak and beech and hornbeam and yew trees, and it really attracts the finches in the winter, and real great density of woodland birds. It's a common bird, of course, the nuthatch. So one of my favorite things to do in the winter is visit in the winter and take a bag of seed with you, throw some seed down on the ground, and lots of these common birds will come flitting in around your feet, very tame, and taking taking food from very close to you, and chance to get really lovely views. Beautiful nuthatch there. Marsh tit will just work and just learn learn the difference between the common species and also go after those more scarce star species of the forest. A beautiful marsh tit there. And very high density of species such as tree creeper, working its way up the limb there with that little curved bill and winkling things out from the bark and behind the lichen. Fabulous little bird. As I was saying, the finches, it's a brilliant destination in the winter. We run tours in winter and spring, but I think our winter tours tend to be more popular, and lots and lots of finches going. This is male siskin here. We'll have bramblings and crossbills and lots of other species coming in. And also in recent years, have had a great grey shrike. This is an unusual visitor from Eastern Europe that visits just in the winter months. So it'll be arriving any time now, really. And each year for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, the Forest of Dean has hosted a great grey shrike or two. So we'll make an effort to find it, of course. And after years of visiting, we sort of got to grips with where this particular shrike likes to spend the winter. Often finding it's where it larders its prey. So here's a shot of it. It's recently caught a mouse, or definitely a small rodent here, and they'll cache their food. They'll known as the butcher bird. So they'll make hay while the sun shines. They'll catch lots of prey items, whether it's bees or small birds or rodents, lizards even I've seen, and they'll larder them. And then when the harsh conditions come, when the winter kicks in, they've got this to fall back on. So fascinating bird with really, really interesting behaviour to witness. Bit of a gruesome photo, this one. This is a wood mouse skewered onto a hawthorn bush. And now, once you find their larder, you can see lots of different prey items. Very interesting to see what they've been taking. And this was taken on a day trip last year. So fabulous bird, the great grey shrike. It's one of my absolute favourites of the hawfinch here. Beautiful bird. The largest finch in the UK with this really, really heavy silver bill there. And probably the bird I've spent most time tracking down in the forest. As soon as I could drive, I was taking myself down to the forest and tracking down hawfinches. Beautiful male, far more sort of brightly ginger coloured around the head, and these beautiful sickle wings. A really big, bulky bird. You see it, you think, blimey, that's too big to be a finch. But really stunning bird. And this bill, strong enough to crack through cherry stones. Really powerful bill. They like the hornbeam and beech, and also yew trees as well. And there's plenty of those in the Forest of Dean. So that was hawfinch. This is a beautiful crossbill. Crossbills visit in the winter and also breed, as do hawfinch. But lots of these finches are easier in the winter when birds from Europe come in and spend the winter in the forest. This bird just using its bill to just just to tease out those seeds from in that larch cone. Beautiful bird. And as I mentioned, bramblings, beautiful male brambling, lots of star birds. Mandarin ducks, a splash of colour on the lakes in the winter months in particular. They're hole nesters, so they nest quite high up in holes in trees, and the youngsters have to then the ducklings have to sort of throw themselves out of the tree and make their way to the water bodies. But they're very, very obvious in the winter months. If you're going through the forest in the winter, drop in at one of the lakes and you're likely to see mandarins. And for the birders amongst you, the lesser spotted woodpecker is a star species to try and find in the forest. Still a pretty decent population of them, but very, very difficult. This is a sparrow-sized woodpecker, and you need a nice, clear blue sky day like this morning was here, and listen for the males drumming, and females drum as well. Listen for the drumming and the calling of lesser spotted woodpecker. So we try and find them. So much to see. This is a view of the River Wye, Simmons Yat, one of the first places that you could really reliably see peregrine. So I remember as a kid on a school trip being taken to Simmons Yat to see the breeding peregrines. Now, of course, we're lucky to have peregrines on lots of churches and buildings in most cities now, really. But we always visit Simmons Yat. Beautiful view. Often see goosander and kingfisher down on the river, and fabulous views of peregrine falcon. Yeah, amazing bird. Wild boar, of course. They're a species that are hated by the locals with some of the destruction that they cause, but loved by visitors. I often, when we're having dinner on the first evening, I sort of ask, what are people's particular targets? What would they love to see most? And wild boar is often that one of the species people most like to see. So we'll get out and try and find wild boar. Introduced in the sort of 1999 2000 time, about 20 animals were released, and they've since then their population has just exploded, and now there's thought to be over 1,000 animals roaming around in the forest. Despite that, they're pretty tricky to see. People visit and think, oh, I'll see wild boar, no problem at all. But it usually takes getting out after dark with a spotlight, so driving around with a pretty high-powered torch, shining around, trying to see them. As we intercepted this large sow here, and you can see where they turn over the ground, root up the ground, and that's why they're not too they're not not in favour with the locals too much. There'll be fallow deer as well, so a nice array of mammals. And in the spring, such special species as pied flycatcher will visit from Africa, winter in Africa, and then come back to the Forest of Dean to breed. And it's one of the real star species of Nag's Head, RSPB in particular. Those of you, I'm sure a few of you have visited there. And they've got a nest box scheme. So they used to be over 100 pairs, sort of 20, 30 years ago. There's now between 20 and 30 pairs. And it's been pretty stable around that mark for the past sort of 7-8 years, but it's a a great project they're doing there, and really top work in conserving them. And the stunning wood warbler. So if you're it's a fantastic place to go, Nag's Head, to see your sort of returning birds from your spring and summer migrants that return here to breed and go visiting in those months. And the little gem of a firecrest. They've colonized. They've done very well. It used to be very, very scarce and only found in the southern counties, and as a passage migrant. But they're found in good numbers in the forest now. And one of my absolute highlights of British wildlife watching is getting out and experiencing nightjars. This is a nightjar here I was lucky enough to see last year, resting on this tree stump. Very difficult to see, of course, in the daytime when they're resting up. But they make these amazing displays at dusk with the males flying around, clapping their wings, making that beautiful churring call. And every night jarring evening is a magical experience, and always slightly different. So I've been out countless times to enjoy them. And there's a couple of glades. There's quite a few glades actually where they nest. There's a good population. And again, now come back from Africa, arriving sort of mid to late May, and then staying through to mid-August. Fabulous experience. So if you haven't had a chance or haven't gone out for nightjars, highly recommend it. The Forest of Dean's brilliant for it. Butterfly fans is wood white. It's a fabulous place to find wood white, a very scarce and localized, beautiful butterfly, and small pearl border fritillary on a couple of reserves. So it's got so much to offer in the Forest of Dean. If you're visiting in March and April, earlier in the season, when adders are just coming out of hibernation, it's a young male adder here. It's a great place to find them. There's a few points walking up to New Fancy Viewpoint and the little bank on the left there. Fabulous for finding adders for those snake fans. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the Forest of Dean, one of my absolute favourite places to enjoy wildlife, and very, very close to us, of course. And even closer to you guys are there's the Somerset Levels, and a place that I've again visited many times, and one of my absolute favourites. As I'm sure you've all been out and enjoyed it. It really is. I've done quite a lot of European tour leading. I've done quite a bit of down to the Camargue in southwestern France quite a few times. And over the years, the Somerset Levels have developed for me into a bit of a mini Camargue, and just amazing wetland with so many different species to enjoy. So with the peat workings that have happened over the years, they've created lots of these islands, these pockets of habitat, which is very difficult to reach for predators such as foxes and so forth. And it's really helped with the population of bittern, for instance, and marsh harrier and various different heron species. And it's just got better and better and better over the years. It's a really super area. I always have a geography slide, but you'll all be well aware of where the Somerset Levels are. Mendips to the north, Quantock to the south, and Glastonbury here. And it's just a really large floodplain, which is designed, of course, to flood every year, and it's a magnet for birds, particularly through the winter months, but all year round. It's a brilliant destination. And we base our tours in Wells, so just a short 15-20 minute drive to get out to the wildlife highlights. So one starling, there's a starling here, beautiful bird, very very underrated bird for me. But during the winter months on the Somerset levels, seeing up to 1 million of them together is definitely one of my absolute highlights of a British wildlife calendar. It's super, and it's coming to that time now. Starlings are piling into the UK, and one of the largest roosts in the whole of the UK is on the Somerset levels, with numbers reaching sometimes in excess of 1 million birds. So this is a classic starling murmuration you'd have all heard of. You often need a peregrine or a buzzard coming in and giving them a bit of a buzz and having a go at them for them to swirl and make these amazing formations in the sky before diving in and roosting in the reeds. It's a magical experience, and again, with the nightjar experiences, every time's different. So I've been many times to see the starling roost, and some evenings they'll shoot straight into the reeds, quite low down, and other evenings they'll swirl around for quite some time like this, before they cascade and dive into their reed bed roost site, and they all roost together in the reeds, often flattening them. In fact, large patches of reed beds get completely flattened by all these birds. We'll also go back in the morning. So this is a dawn shot where they all lift up out of the reeds and scatter in every direction. It's as spectacular as the evening, and a really amazing experience. And you see the reeds completely flattened down, and we've even had bittern and things walking out and picking up any birds that have died overnight. It's amazing. So watching starlings coming to roost and leaving their roost is definitely one of my absolute highlights of the wildlife calendar in Britain. I'm a big fan of wildfowl. I worked at Slimbridge for a time, and just huge numbers of widgeon here, of teal, of shoveler, gadwall, wintering duck on the Somerset levels. Huge flocks, really impressive. Beautiful drake pintail here, stunning birds. It's fabulous for its wintering ducks. Bearded tit is increasing in numbers in the Somerset levels, and common cranes as well. I was at Slimbridge where they brought the eggs in from Germany to rear common crane and release them onto the Somerset levels, and it's been a great success. So you've got a very good chance now of seeing common crane on the levels. Again, in winter it's a little bit easier. They'll gather in flocks in the winter months, and then of course when they're breeding they'll head off, and always a little bit more secretive in the breeding season. But it's an amazing experience when they fly over, making that amazing trumpeting call. To have common cranes back is very special. They actually came back to, whilst I was working there, they came back to Slimbridge. So I think the RSPB did a lot of they released onto an RSPB reserve. We're a little bit miffed actually that they decided to leave their amazing reserve on the levels and fly back to Slimbridge. But they now breed at both these areas. They breed at Slimbridge and on the levels, so it's a real success story. The cranes there. So the bittern, very secretive, elusive bird, but their numbers have just increased over the years. They make that amazing booming, deep boom call in the spring to stake their territories, and they're doing very well on the Somerset levels. Even such rare species, little bittern is flourishing. Great white egret, cattle egret, almost all your European herons are now colonizing the Somerset levels. So it's really impressive. And you almost always like to see a marsh harrier quartering the reeds here. Really impressive bird of prey. That again, their numbers are increasing there. They'll take coots and moorhens and smaller birds as well. And in summer, our only duck that visits the UK for the summer is the gargany. All those other species will just visit in the winter, but the gargany comes in spring and summer, and small numbers breed on the levels. So another special species. And on the hills around the levels, on the Polden Hills in particular, we find the large blue butterfly, extinct of course in Britain for quite a number of years, and then in recent times they've reintroduced them on some reserves once they found out their life cycle closely linked to red ants. And once they found that link, they were able to reintroduce them very successfully. So if you're into butterflies, it's a star one to find around the levels. So that's the Somerset levels. I'm now going to my final sort of destination in the UK. I picked 4 of my destinations. I've had Ardnamurchan in Scotland, Forest of Dean, the Somerset levels, and now to Spurn and the magic of migration that happens at Spurn in East Yorkshire. Fabulous place, particularly if you're into your migratory, into your birds, and in particular, and the magic of migration. It's an amazing place to visit. Up here in East Yorkshire, this is the Humber River. Hull is around here. It's a fair old drive for us, but I tend to make the pilgrimage up there, once a year. And we now run a tour there, staying at the Dunedin Country House, and just enjoying the migrant birds that drift through here. This is pied flycatcher, so birds that are bred in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe will, on their way to Africa, often drift across the North Sea and end up at Spurn. And it's just amazing watching these passage birds migrating through the peninsula. We'll often have large numbers of redstarts. That was pied flycatcher previously, and scarce birds from Asia, yellow-browed warbler becoming quite frequent. And I was up there just a couple of weekends ago. I'm just enjoying the sheer number of birds coming in off the North Sea. This is a wryneck here, which is a special species in autumn. But I was up there just enjoying watching starlings arriving. So the starlings that we might see on the Somerset levels, I was watching coming in off the North Sea, coming in from Germany and as far east as Russia, coming in and migrating and making landfall in the UK. It's a brilliant place to watch visible migration. The wardens there, ring the birds and have monitored them for many years. So we get involved with ringing sessions. It's a beautiful firecrest in the hand here, one of Europe's most tiny species. And the next day they might catch a long-eared owl and ring and monitor and find out the movements of these birds, where they're wintering, where they're breeding, so we can learn to protect these areas, protect where they're wintering, protect their breeding grounds. It's a really special place, and we take a ride on this special unimog all the way to the tip of Spurn Point. It's a big spit of land that juts out into the North Sea, and this is a view from the top of the lighthouse along Spurn Point. So you've got the North Sea out here and the Humber out on the left, and this sort of patch of habitat jutting out into the North Sea. And it's why it's such a magnet for lots of birds. It's their first landfall as they come across the North Sea. Thousands of redwings arrive there today. Fieldfares, all these winter birds that we'll be seeing now arriving in our gardens. And another view from the lighthouse at Spurn. Thousands of waders as well, migrating and spending the winter here. Big flock of knot here at Spurn, and some beautiful coastal scenery. But Flamborough Head and Bempton, seabird colonies there, and beautiful views. It's a really special place, and I will highly recommend a visit. Beautiful gannet here at Bempton Cliffs. Stunning birding. So those are my 4, on my best of Britain. I could have picked plenty of others, but those are my 4 favourites: Ardnamurchan, Forest of Dean, Somerset levels, and Spurn Point up in East Yorkshire. My absolute favourites, I think. And I'm now the rest of the talk is going to be more on enjoying your own patch, enjoying what's on your doorstep. You don't need to travel anywhere really to enjoy wildlife, and it's a great deal of pleasure over the years I've taken from enjoying your local patch, identifying somewhere that maybe not many other people go, or people don't really watch too often, or is very close to your house, and you can watch regularly, and just see how the wildlife changes over the course of the year, what comes, what goes, how the habitat develops. It's great fun and very rewarding. You don't need to go out and see scarce or rare or unusual species. It's wildlife that's on your patch, and that's what makes it special. So I'm going to cover just a couple of my local areas around Cheltenham. So I'm based just outside Cheltenham, and the nearest body of water, it's always a good idea to head to a body of water. Always brings in wildlife, of course, and one of those is Dalswell Reservoir, right next to the main A40. Fairly small body of water that really often doesn't hold a great deal, but it's my patch, and it's where I enjoy going and watching wildlife. This is a great crested grebe here trying to eat a tench. And one pair of great crested grebe breed every year at Dowdeswell, and I do my best to find where they're nesting and try and encourage dog walkers not to go around near the nest and that sort of thing, and keep an eye on them. And it's nice just monitoring and enjoying what's on your doorstep. The tufted duck is actually quite unusual now, unfortunately. There used to be quite a wintering population, a good flock wintering there, but you get the occasional tufted duck now, and it's always a nice moment when we see a tufty on Dowdeswell. Kingfishers breed nearby, but on rivers nearby. But in the winter, particularly, we'll see them with some regularity. This is a young bird with a little white tip to the end of the bill here. Female kingfishers will have an orangey lower mandible. Males, all black, stunning bird, of course, one of my absolute favourites, and seen fairly frequently. And when the water level drops, and this time of year when birds are passing through and coming in, occasionally we'll get a snipe dropping in, which is of course a fairly widespread common winter visitor. But when it arrives on your patch, it's exciting, and you monitor what's there throughout the years. There initially was a very small reed bed at the top of the reservoir. Now that's developing, you're getting larger, and reed warblers have found that small patch of reeds and are now breeding there. So that's a real positive. I think last year there was at least 4 pairs. I could hear 4 singing males, which was really nice. And it's nice just monitoring what's there on your local patch. And now it's changing. Reed buntings are doing well as well. And this is a photo way back from 1995, one of the first rare birds I saw at Dowdeswell, and it's a juvenile night heron. I remember driving past and seeing a group of bird watchers on the edge of the main A40, and I got dropped off and had a look at this night heron, and quite a few years later, chatting to local birders, and was sent this photo. So you never know what's going to turn up, and that's a real thrill again of working at a patch that maybe no one else really really watches. This is my best ever find on my sort of birding time, is a Wilson's phalarope that should have been migrating from North to South America, but ended up somehow on Dowdeswell Reservoir, a little reservoir just outside Cheltenham. The water level had dropped. There was some exposed mud, and this Wilson's phalarope dropped in just for a couple of days, and I was the one that was lucky enough to find it, and it was a great thrill, of course. In harsh conditions, heading to your local pond or any sort of local body of water is well worth it. When water freezes over in some areas, birds need to move. This is a beautiful drake goosander with a couple of mallards, of course, behind it, stood on the ice. But wildfowl move in harsh conditions, so well worth checking your local water bodies through the winter months. Crossbill hadn't really been recorded in the woodlands there until I found a small flock a few years ago. So there's always exciting things to find. It's fun finding wildlife as much as observing it itself. Osprey very occasionally passes through in the spring as they're heading further north to breed. They'll occasionally stop off at Dowdeswell. I've had a couple of fabulous sightings of osprey here. Even witnessed coming in and taking fish from the reservoir. And a grasshopper warbler dropped in for a few days one year, quite a secretive warbler in some of the sedge grasses there. So you never know what you can find. I love my snakes, and I put tins down for grass snakes to hide under. A close up of a grass snake here. So it's just enjoying everything that's around on your local patch. Another area is Cleve Common. So I'd highly recommend getting to high points when you're out exploring a site, or if you're thinking, I wonder where I should really focus on, or where I should go out and enjoy regularly. High points are very good for birds dropping in. So this is five ring ouzels dropping in the springtime up on Cleve Common, one of the highest points in Gloucestershire. And these birds moving north and stopping off here in the spring to spend often a couple of weeks and before moving on. Very good for passage wheat ears passing through, your high points, your commons, and stone chats. It's been interesting just to just to monitor the stone chats there. They'll breed up on the common, and then in the winter months drop down into the more sheltered lowland areas. So that's one of the key species up on Cleve Common, and just monitoring how they're doing. Wind chats, a very close relative with this white streak through the eye, a beautiful juvenile wind chat. They'll move through in August and September. So again, it's just enjoying what's there at the different times of year, and you're just building up a knowledge of that one site that becomes very special to you, and maybe somewhere that is underwatched, and you're finding and recording everything that's there. This is a juvenile stone chat on a post there, and myself and a few others, we keep tabs on the breeding and how things are faring breeding wise, and recording recording everything that's there. Beautiful redstart. Again, redstarts breed in Africa. I'm sorry, winter in Africa, breed in the woodlands and around Cleve. It's always a special species to find. And as I was saying, you really never know what you could find. This is a doctoral, a very rare species. I was lucky enough to find a few years ago, passing through Cleve, and stumbled across this beautiful bird, species of wader, where the female is more brightly coloured than the male, which is unusual, of course, in birding terms. Stunning bird. Here's my brother taking a close up, very confiding, so they'll just let you approach very, very close by. Beautiful doctoral, and a young bird we found a few years later as well. So you never know what you can find, and working your own patch and working it regularly throughout the year. I've already spoken about great grey shrikes, but they pass through, and I've been lucky enough to find a couple of great grey shrikes myself up there. And I monitor the reptiles as well, so always keeping tabs on the adder population there, and have a few tins down to turn and keep an eye on how they're doing. So it's a great spot. Often turn up and you won't see much, but for that visit, that lots will be happening, and you have a special site, it makes it all worthwhile. So I really highly recommend working your own patch. We're very lucky to have around 10 acres of land, which we've had for many years in the family. Myself and my brother have enjoyed putting up bird boxes all over the land. We've got over 40 bird boxes, owl boxes, tit boxes, open boxes, for a whole host of different species, and it's really great fun. Just again monitoring everything that's there. We're very lucky to have barn owls breeding on our land a few years ago. Beautiful little fluffy youngster in a natural hole in one of the oak trees, and little owls as well, next to our land. So we monitor the birds there and try and do what we can to help with their breeding, and monitor what's coming in, what's breeding, what's passing through. And we have Tourney Owls as well, beautiful Tourney Owls that have become quite used to us walking around the field. Again, they haven't used the box we put up for them, but they breed in trees, in a ivy covered a hole in the field. We've done what we can to plant some new hedgerows. So this was a hedgerow planted around a decade ago now, to try and connect up the existing hedgerows in the field, connect the habitat, improve it for wildlife. And that's a great thing to do if you can, just in your gardens or any space you've got. And now it looks like this. We've had a wildflower strip planted as well, and the hedge lines really developing and doing well. You have a little nest box, monitoring, and every year we'll try and log which species are using which box, how many young they have, how many young fledge. This is a very young brood of blue tits here. A slightly larger brood of blue tits in one of the boxes, and a really nice size clutch here of blue tits, almost ready to fledge. So it's really nice just to monitor how the birds are doing, whether the seasons, whether they're starting to breed at different times of year, how they're faring, which species are using the boxes. I mean, it tends to be around 14 to 15 pairs of either of blue tit or great tit breed on our 10 acres. That seems to be about the limit of what that can sustain with the sort of territory sizes, and the nice brood of great tits there. So again, it's just enjoying and doing what you can locally. What you could get a box up in your garden, and any opportunity to sort of help wildlife and monitor it. We put felt down and tins for a slow worm population and sort of monitor them. This is a female slow worm here with the brown line down the back, and tiny little young slow worms. These little bars of gold here, underneath the tins. Fabulous species. I'm trying to manage the grassland a bit for butterflies. Small copper here, mowing it at certain times of year. Planting, as I said, wildflower strips really has helped with the butterfly populations. And through the winter months, getting a feeding station going. We can all try and get some feeders in the garden, particularly now as it's getting much colder. The birds are going to need a bit of a helping hand. This is siskins here and goldfinches feeding on Niger seed, and it's great fun. A huge amount of pleasure can be taken, of course, from just enjoying the birds in your garden and on your land. It's a whole bird table full of little finches here. Lots of redpoll. This little finch here you can see where they get their name, the red on their forehead, and siskins, of course. So it's the time now when these finches are coming into the UK from colder areas out east and further north to winter here, and it's nice to give them a helping hand and get food out for them. This is lesser redpoll and mealy redpoll here on our land coming into the Niger seed, and they get this beautiful pinky wash on them. Really stunning little birds, and a really cold, frosty mealy redpoll that visited a few years ago. So it's great to get your feeders out and see what comes in. You never know, you might have a brambling coming into the garden. There's lots of them coming in at the moment, enjoy what's on your doorstep. And a few years ago, you've managed to bring a hawfinch in. There was an invasion of hawfinches a few years ago. I mentioned earlier that they visit the UK in larger numbers in the winter. They do breed in the UK, but larger numbers in winter. You never know what could come into your bird table. So it's well worth getting that seed out there, and you might have this beautiful finch come in onto your table. So I'm going to talk a little about camera trapping now. I love camera trapping. You all being into badgers being a passion of yours, of course. I'm sure you probably use camera traps to monitor them and see what's coming in and out of your garden. And it's well worth it. So they're getting far more affordable. I've been through various different models over the years, lost a few in with water rising quicker than you think and that sort of thing. But this is the one I'm using at the moment, and it's the brand is Ape Man. It might sound a bit of a gimmicky brand. You've got Bushnells, which is sort of the more top end, but quite expensive. And this is around £60. You worry too. You're obviously annoyed if you get lost, but it's better than spending a couple of £100, which some of the others cost. And it does a very good job. It gets really nice photos and videos, and it's great for just figuring out what's there. And it's great fun, of course, popping it in the garden on a little hole in the fence or something, and just see what's coming in. So I've had a camera trap set up at Dowdeswell Reservoir for quite a number of years. It just stays up there 24/7, focusing on one area, this little stream that runs into the reed bed. And every now and again, you pop up, change the SD card, get home, put it into the laptop, and it's brilliant. It's so exciting, seeing what's on, what's been visiting, and get a great handle of what's there, even though you're of course not seeing it yourself. It's just brilliant to know what's there. So this is a water rail, and it's amazing the number of species I've had on this one little rock in the reed bed, and no one really knew that water rails were breeding at Dowdeswell until we found a juvenile water rail on that very same rock. So very difficult species to see, very secretive, but it's brilliant to have a camera trap there to record everything that's coming in when you're not around. So you need some imagination with some of these slides that are coming up, because it's they're not all too crisp. But this is a stoat on that very same rock that the water rails were on. So you never know what you're going to find, and some real imagination needed with this one. Any guesses? I'm pretty sure it's a water shrew. So on again that same rock, a large shrew species with the quite distinct cut off between the white belly and the black back, quite an aquatic species, so it would make sense to be in the water here. So it's fascinating to log all the different species that are found through the camera trapping. And you can take, as I said, photos and videos, a close up of a roe deer nibbling on a dandelion here, and a bit of a video just to show the sort of video quality you can get of a muntjac that was enjoying a little wander and a feed. See if this video works. So as I said, I take a camera trap wherever I travel, all over the world, and I just love figuring out what's there and enjoying finding out which species are where, and having some great videos and photos as well. See if I can somehow get to the next slide. Grey heron, of course, right in front of the camera trap, and it's amazing their eyes. Most animals will move past the camera trap without really noticing it or paying it much attention, but this grey heron, I think, burnt through a whole pack of batteries just standing in front of the camera trap for probably hours on end, just staring at it, point blank. So there's just a little video of it. It's clearly seeing the tiny little red LED, sensor on the front of the camera trap, and it just, I had a whole SD card completely full of this of this heron staring at it. Yeah, very great bird. So what's happening? The LED sensor, of course, will sense the movement. So whenever anything moves in front of the camera trap, it triggers it. I've got it set as a 20-second video, and then it needs to be triggered again. So it's usually stuff just passing by, but occasionally you have things hanging around in front of the camera trap. This is a first record of Mandarin Ducks at Dowdswell. Again, no one realised that mandarins were there. A pair of them, male and female here. And that water rail again, a bit of a video. So the videos are, can be a little bit grainy. It's not, you're not going to be. It's not Attenborough standard, of course, but it's good enough to see what's there. Beautiful water rail. Hopping off there. And one of my most exciting moments of camera trapping was being the first to record otter at Dowdswell. They've been doing very, very well. So they're now found again in every county in England after being very scarce and lost in many areas. So they're really bouncing back, and this was a number of years ago now, after having the camera trap there for a long time. To have an otter coming in right in front of the camera trap was a magic moment. And they're very, very nocturnal. So I've showed those slides in Scotland, the same species, of course, river otters, but they're far more nocturnal inland. So these animals would just be appearing in front of the camera trap at sort of 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I only saw them for the first time last year out on the reservoir. Turned up on a gloomy afternoon, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was one out on the water. So I finally managed to see an otter for real on Dowdswell after having countless videos. This isn't a great video. It was the first ever video to prove that there was more than one. It wasn't just an animal passing through. There's a family of otters, and again, it's piecing together the jigsaw. You can learn so much from these videos and photos and camera trap work. This is a camera trap in a slightly different place underneath a bridge, and an otter sprinting, scent marking, staking its territory under the bridge here. I was trying to find where possibly the otter halt could be, but that's been a challenge too far so far. But fascinating to try and follow their movements. Another nice photo of otters, one of my absolute favourites, and one of my rare daytime daytime videos. So they will often come and spraint on rocks like this. This one coming in and smelling some spraint here on these exposed rocks. So it's often good to look at the exposed rocks on rivers to see if there's any signs of otter. And the spraint being very sort of sweet smelling. It's not a nasty smell at all. Just one more video. And away it goes. And that was actually 15 minutes before I turned up to change the SD card. So I just missed that otter going past the camera trap. But yeah, I'll intercept one of these days. My first badger slide. I'm sorry it's taking so long to get to a badger slide for the badger group, but yeah, we've got a camera trap on our land, and we're feeding the badgers up there, and we're again recording how they're doing. And thrilled to have them on our land. Fabulous animal, of course, and we've spent many hours badger watching. One of my first dates with my now wife was going and sitting next to a badger set and just waiting for badgers to come out. And I thought, if she can put up with this and is going to stay with me after this date, then she's a keeper. But we sat and watched badgers coming out of the set and on a set that we found, and had some amazing views. So we now monitor them mainly with camera trapping on our land to see how they're going. There's an old set that's not actually occupied at the moment. We're hoping they're going to come back in and take it over. Another mustelid, a bit of a grainy shot, but polecat also on our land. So you really never know what you can find. Really amazed recently to have a polecat. It's actually visited last week. Visited on three occasions just last week. So it's a regular visitor on our land now. This polecat. We've got some slightly better photos now. And again, this is camera trapping in your garden. This was my old house I recently moved from. We had hedgehogs hibernating and breeding in the garden, and this is a photo you probably didn't expect to see this evening. This is a hedgehog scratching its back with this incredibly flexible leg it has. Quite amazing. I called this one Scratchy because it was constantly itching and scratching itself on the camera trap, and got some really nice photos and videos of it, and this tiny little tail sticking up here. So a bit of a different photo of a hedgehog here that I was feeding in the back garden. And of course, putting out water, so important. Always have a bowl of water in the back garden, pop the camera trap on it, and see what comes in and finds it. So, as you'll all know, wildlife takes its opportunity with both hands. If you put things out to provide shelter, a home, food, water, they will take advantage of that. It's amazing how quickly they will find that nesting site or find that food source, and popping a camera trap on it just enables you to see what's coming in. There's a bit of a badger video that I recorded fairly recently to check if a set was active or not. Beautiful. And I'm very lucky to have a badger coming into the back garden, putting out peanuts every evening, and have managed to get the badger coming down onto the decking. I'm just watching it from inside the house. It comes in, hoovers up all the peanuts for half an hour or so, has a root around in the garden, and then heads off. So I've just knocked a little hole in the fence at the back of the garden, and that's key really. Just to connect gardens, connect habitat, allow things to come into your garden, move through your garden. And I've recently moved house only, in June, and it took only a week for knocking out a fence panel, throwing out nuts, and on night 7 of the feeding and camera trapping, that was when I first recorded a badger. So it really doesn't take them long to find a food source, and it obviously needs to carry on feeding for the rest of the night, but it'll come in, hoover up the nuts, have a nice little extra snack, and then head on and carry on foraging, and has a dig around the lawn, and I don't really mind about that, of course, and finding earthworms and things, and yeah, to see them, a few, a few inches away at times, comes right up to the window, and it's amazing animals. I don't need to tell you how awesome badgers are. It's a thrill every night. And I've got 2 boys now. My eldest is 2.5, so I'll wake him up occasionally and bring him down and show him the badger and try and get him inspired as well. Fabulous animals. And there's so much you can find in your garden. Last year, of course, you were confined pretty much to our houses and gardens. Couldn't even go and couldn't even visit your local patch 5 minutes away during the awful COVID lockdowns. And when I decided to try and learn more about our bees, so I've also had bee hotels up for quite a while, but I really wanted to learn more about them. Also had lots of red mason bees coming in. But remarkably, last year had this European orchard bee came in. It was larger than the red mason bees, a big fiery abdomen, and arrived a little earlier. Came to the bee hotels in March. I thought, this is unusual. I didn't know what it was. Asked some experts, and European orchard bee, first record for Gloucestershire, and only a few records just outside London. So a very, very rare species. And actually proceeded to lay eggs and breed in my bee hotel, which is amazing. So you really never know what's coming in and using your garden, and it's just great fun figuring out what everything is. I'm looking at the smaller things as well, such as these obviously numerous different species of solitary bee. I had a magical encounter last year up on a local golf course. It was closed during the COVID times, and I spoke to the greenkeeper and asked if I could go birding and wildlife watching up there. And one frosty morning I was looking for lesser spotted woodpeckers actually, and looked over, and this badger was obviously had a late night out and was on his way back to the set and was just bounding straight towards me. So I just knelt down, and it ran within a couple of meters, just bounded across into the woodland to a nearby set, and managed to get, I think this is probably my best ever photo of a badger in motion as it was bounding along. Amazing. So yeah, I was chuffed with that. And as I said, I was looking for lesser spotted woodpecker. Very, very, very special bird. I've always fancied them there, but never been able to access the area because it's private with all the golfers. But during the lockdown, I cycled up there pretty much every morning, only a couple of minutes from home, and managed to find this beautiful female lesser spotted woodpecker, and learned that they are still in the Cotswolds. Very, very rare bird in the Cotswolds, just clinging on, and it's a real thrill to find. So I'm going to finish there. That's a whistle stop really through some of my very my favorite places in the UK to visit and watch wildlife, and also just how much enjoyment you can get from birding your local patch, your garden, and a whole range of different wildlife that can be enjoyed. So I'll finish with this slide. This is me phone scoping. So I've got my phone on the end of the telescope here, looking at a lesser spotted woodpecker, and my son Max on my back, having a look as well and doing the little pecking sign for a bird. So I'm going to try and get him inspired. I've got another little boy, Harry, now, so I'm going to get my boys inspired with wildlife as well. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to that, and thank you again for inviting me. And any questions, please fire away. Thank you.
Right, we've had quite a few questions come in.
Great.
So I'm sort of bundling them together rather than going through them in the order that they came in. We've had a couple here, and a few people are wondering, with climate change happening, are you seeing any changes in the areas that you're keeping an eye on? And tied up with that was one of the photos from Scotland had some plastic in front of the camera, and the people were wondering whether you're seeing more of this.
Good questions. Certainly with climate change, the area that jumps out is the Somerset levels there with the different heron species. I mean, they used to be European species, but with the warming and the warmer conditions here, you're seeing a sort of a gradual shift in their range, and they're able to breed and be very successful in the UK. So on one hand, it's it's great to have these species flourishing on the levels, but it's a little bit of a in the back of your mind, just thinking, well, that they're here because it's slightly warming, and think that we're generally seeing a northward shift in the range of species. So as I had a doctoral slide, their numbers are becoming less on the peaks in Scotland because the conditions just aren't quite right for them anymore, and their range is shifting northward again away from us. So everything seems to be, the range of lots of species does tend to be shifting a little bit to the north with the warmer, with the conditions warming. So yeah, it is evident in certain species. If I hope that sort of
and
question
is plastic,
to some extent.
Is plastic more of an issue that you're seeing?
Which slide was that? I hadn't actually. I can't be looking at my slides closely enough. I couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't see that in the slide. But I mean, plastic's a problem, isn't it? It's a big problem. Littering. I wander around when I wander around Dowdswell. I wander around Cleve. I wander on my patch. I'll take a plastic bag with me, and I'll often come back with lots of litter. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you all see it. It's a problem. We're as a nation, I think people are finally realizing that plastic's a big problem, and we're cutting down on our single-use plastics, and we've got to carry on doing that. But it does, to be honest, it does drive me mad, the amount of litter that's around, and you bump into it all the time when you're out birding, and all you can do is do your bit and bag it up, and that's that. But I'm sure you've all seen that as well. Yeah. But no, I'll have to check that slide. I didn't. which one was that? I can't have a slide with plastic in it.
I'm not sure myself, but somebody said they spotted some. Obviously, you spend a lot of time and you're seeing an awful lot of wildlife. And one of the questions we got was, do you report and record sightings to any wildlife organisations?
It all goes to the county recorder. So whether it's the bird recorder, the mammal recorder, the Gloucestershire recorders. So I have most involvement with the Gloucestershire Naturalist Society, and they've got someone that records all different taxa, whether it's birds, mammals, bees, various butterflies, and those you can submit the sightings fairly easily to the local recorder. So that's the way to do it, and it's make your sightings count and submit them. Yeah,
brilliant. Now I don't know whether this next one is aimed at you personally or Naturetrek as an organisation, but somebody says, are they right in thinking you support local businesses and provide some local jobs?
Absolutely. We support lodges and guides all around the world. We're passionate about making our travel count, making our tours a benefit to people and wildlife. So we absolutely support small local businesses, local charities. The tours I run up to Spurn, and I have very, very good donations to the observatory for the great work they do. And we've always got we do a lot of work with butterfly conservation, so we make a donation to them of over £20,000 every year. A percentage, 10% of all our butterfly tours goes to butterfly conservation for them to use to conserve butterflies. And we also, way before carbon offsetting was really as mainstream as it is now, we've been donating to the World Land Trust. So we work with a very small charity, Eco Minga in Ecuador, and they work with the World Land Trust. So everyone that travels with us, we donate to offset the flights, to directly purchase land in Ecuador. So we've got our own reserve in Ecuador now, which is about 1,500 acres now, trying to connect two national parks together. So we've got lots of information on our website about it. But we're very, very passionate about doing what we can to protect land, and we find that the best way, buying this land, fully protecting it is locking in that carbon, of course, and protecting, not only doing that, but protecting the land for wildlife. And we've actually found a new species there a couple of years ago. We found a new frog. We've got a team out there that's working there. So we've got a frog named after Naturetrek, Noblella Naturetrekky was found there. So we do all sorts like that. If you wanted to learn more, have a look at our sustainability page. But yeah, our tours really do benefit locals and the wildlife.
Oh, that's incredible, and I do like the idea of a frog being named after the organisation.
Yes, I know. Yeah, the owners. We're still privately run, so it's, a couple, David and Marianne Mills, still own and run the company. So we've not been bought out over the years or anything like that. And they were really chuffed, and a bit of an ambition was to have a species named after the company. So we've achieved that recently. So we're pleased with that.
Excellent. Oh, well done. Right, the next one might put you on the spot a little bit, but it's only a quick opinion. What is your opinion on badger vaccination?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, yeah, I'm obviously absolutely opposed to the cull. It's appalling in my opinion. And yeah, if they going down the vaccination route over culling, absolutely. So I'm all for that. Whether there even needs to be, the stress of vaccinating them is a question mark that for me. But if that's if it's vaccination or culling, of course, it absolutely needs to be vaccinating them. It's horrendous, the cull, of course, which I'm sure you'll all be agreeing with. Yeah, that's my stance on it.
Thank you. The final thing is probably more for me, although you're welcome to promote it now. Somebody would like me to share details of your tour's website, which I always do when I put these videos together. But if you want to,
absolutely. So it was naturetrek.co.uk is our website. So if you search or just Google Naturetrek, the website will come up. And whether you're checking out any of our tours or want to learn more about our reserve in Ecuador or the work we're doing to there, please do. It'd be great if you could have a check out of our website. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all from the question side. We have had a thank you for the amazing photos.
Great. No, thank you for having me, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you ever want to explore, we do day trips as well. I lead a lot of the day trips in the Forest of Dean, so maybe you could come along and join me one day. But no, thanks for inviting me along.
Brilliant. So I'll hand back to Jo then.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'm very interested in those day trips, so I'll be looking at that. I have written in capital letters here, save up. So that's what I'm going to be doing, so I can join Naturetrek. Tom, that was absolutely brilliant. I cannot believe how many different species we saw there in an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 10 minutes. Absolutely incredible. And it really makes me realise how rich the UK, the land we live in here, we've got so much here. It's just incredible. So I cannot thank you enough. That was amazing. It's also a real privilege to have somebody who had their first date badger watching with us tonight. That was a huge privilege. And I really loved, Tom, how you finished with that photograph with your son. To me, after seeing all those species and seeing that photograph of your son on the back, that was just perfect, and that finished that talk beautifully, because this is what it's all about, education and saving all this for the next generation. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. No, thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.